You can't just grow your company without growing your supply chain.
And I also think that the scope of supply chain is in the future not only what we used to understand about supply chain. I think supply chain also should be in the lead of strategy, because supply chain understands the connectivity of the whole network, from commercial through finance to operations.
Hello, and welcome to Speaking of Supply Chain, where MEBOK experts from around the world unpack the real stories, strategies, insights, and innovations shaping the future of supply chain. I'm your host, Ellen Wood. Risk used to be something companies responded to after the disruption happened. Today, especially in pharmaceutical supply chains, risk has become a permanent design condition. Tariffs shift overnight. Conflicts disrupt critical corridors, and pricing pressure continues to intensify, all while patients still depend on uninterrupted access to medicines. In this episode, we're exploring what it really means to move from reactive firefighting to proactive resilience. And joining me is Stefan Gotthardt, who moderated a powerful discussion at this year's European LogiPharma conference just last month in Vienna on how pharmaceutical leaders can anticipate geopolitical shocks, strengthen supply networks, and protect global access in an increasingly fragmented world. Welcome, Stefan.
Thanks, Ellen. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. So in your discussion last month at the conference, what was the general consensus? What has geopolitical risk become, or why has geopolitical risk become such a defining issue for these pharmaceutical supply chains?
I think there have been various responses to this, but I think what they all had in common is that over the past decades, pharmaceutical industry really followed a globalization approach. Networks are global. Sourcing is global. And you can easily imagine that if there is an interruption, may it be a vessel that is stuck in the Suez Channel, or whether it's bigger issues around the world, that immediately impacts a globally set up supply chain.
So it's because of the way we've designed them for the past 20, 30 years that causes these difficulties when there is that type of large-scale disruption.
Exactly, because it takes long to set up new processes, new sourcing locations, and specifically, and we're going to talk about this in more detail, I guess, but when you think about APIs and starting materials, it's not only that they are being sourced from India or China or other places in Asia. It is also that they cannot be sourced from Europe any longer, because for commodity products, the manufacturing capacities and capabilities have been moved away to other regions in the world. So this cannot instantly turn back to what we had like 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, it's not as easy to make those changes when such a large component of the pharmaceutical production is so far away.
Exactly.
So during the panel, you emphasized the shift from reacting to anticipating. What does that kind of proactive resilience actually look like in practice?
So in my mind, and that was also part of my introduction to the panel, we are always good at reacting to a given problem. So I mentioned the vessel that got stuck in the Suez Channel. So we looked at what do we do when, in case the next vessel gets stuck in the next Suez Channel. And then was COVID. So the learning after COVID was, how do we prepare for the next pandemic? Then we had this problem with tariffs. So we think about what can we do to avoid the impact of tariffs. It is a singular, if you will, consideration of activities that address a specific issues versus making our supply network as such more resilient. And I have been to conferences end of last year where companies have presented their approach to mitigating those kind of risks in a different way. And to simplify, what I've heard there was, they said, what we sell in the US, we produce in the US. What we sell in Europe, we produce in Europe. What we sell in China, we produce in China. Now, as said before, it's not so easy for the pharmaceutical industry to instantly do that, but a strategy never gets implemented instantly. A strategy needs to be worked out and then needs to get implemented over time. But we don't have that strategy.
That makes sense. One of the other issues you mentioned briefly was the tariffs and the trade restrictions, and I imagine that impacts when these companies make these strategic decisions to produce where their end customers are. So, but those can change as quickly as overnight. To your point, we can't change the strategy overnight. We can't change the supply network overnight. What are companies doing differently today in order to reduce that exposure before there is a disruption?
Short-term activities certainly have to do with finding manufacturing partners. If you don't have a manufacturing site in the US, which is the case for some of the pharma companies, or they have manufacturing sites, but they don't produce the products for the specific markets, they look for contract manufacturing partners, these kind of things. But that's expensive, and
Yes.
it still kind of requires product transfers and respective activities. I think the pure promise of investing somewhere in terms of building manufacturing capabilities and the likes is maybe a good signal, but it needs to be followed by action and by execution. So again, it's not a short-term remediation, but you have to start in order to get there.
Okay, no, that makes sense to start thinking about those potential problems down the road. And you mentioned that the contract manufacturing is an expensive option, and one of the recurring themes was at the conference was balancing that resiliency with the affordability. How do the leaders justify investing in that kind of redundancy and flexibility when the pricing pressures are already so intense?
I'm really glad that you asked the question. Otherwise, I would have asked it myself to me, because I think that starts the discussion at the wrong end. Pharma industry takes the price pressure as a given, and I think that's a fundamental mistake, because I think that providing appropriate medicine to patients that need medicine is an overall, an overall objective for the society. And the society includes the pharma industry, the doctors, the pharmacies, the payers, and the health authorities. And I think the last two are the ones that are they're trying to understand their role, the changing role in the future. And they are learning about the impact that cost and price pressure does have on providing medicine to patients. And there's this running gag or anecdote about this, a pack of chewing gum that is twice more expensive than a pack of ibuprofen tablets. I mean, that's true. I happened to speak to a managing director and owner of a contract manufacturer 2 days ago. And he said, I am declining supplying specific generic products to customers in Europe because I cannot make any money out of it. And it's not that he wants to get rich by producing ibuprofen, but at least covering some, kind of costs is important. So what I'm trying to get at, the public pressure needs to increase a bit further to make authorities and payers understand that producing pharmaceutical product regionally or even locally has a price tag. And it's not only the pharma industry that can cover for those costs. It must be a joint effort. There are generic companies in this world, big ones, who are exiting specific markets with specific parts of their portfolio because it's not profitable. and authorities are allowing this to happen. So that creates the problem of shortages. And here come authorities back into the game, because public pressure on product shortage is going to increase, specifically if it's like critical medicine, oncology products, etc., etc., etc. And at some point, I'm absolutely convinced it will click, and there's going to be made a connection between supply of product and appropriate price of product.
And that's interesting that you mentioned that this affects not only the pharmaceutical industry, but also all the practitioners, the doctors, the nurses, the patients, pharmacists, because at the end of the day, we are all human and we are all going to need medicine at some point. Even those owners and the pharmaceutical companies themselves are made up of people who are going to need medicine at some point. So that's an interesting perspective. But I agree that there does need to be some sort of pressure. Political pressure is most likely from governments and authorities in order to ensure that the medications that are necessary for their populations are available. But then when we start talking about countries and politics and government, then we inevitably encounter conflict. And conflict-driven disruptions have become more common, more unpredictable. What capabilities separate the companies that are able to adapt quickly from those that struggle to adapt?
So I think pharmaceutical industry for the longest time was famous for stability, stable processes, lack of ambiguity, all these kind of things. There are other industries that have and had to be always more flexible, also from a mindset perspective. And I think that is something that the pharmaceutical industry is going to get at. When you look at how positions, specifically positions like the global head of supply chain roles in pharmaceutical companies are being filled. In the past, it used to be people, experts who have worked in the pharmaceutical industry. Today, what you find very often is that it's those individuals are coming from other industries, fast-moving consumer goods, etc., etc. I have recently spoken to a global head of supply chain who came from automotive. So I mean, it tells me that supply chain is a discipline that requires experience and capabilities. I get that. I've done it myself for quite some time, but it's sometimes super helpful if there is outside-in knowledge from other industries that have been and had to be more agile, more flexible, are used to ambiguity, these kind of things. This will also help. Will also help the pharmaceutical industry going forward.
Interesting. And I would agree that when it comes to supply chain and logistics, there are specialty knowledge that is available, to those individuals that might not be necessarily pharmaceutical knowledge or consumer goods knowledge or even fashion or retail knowledge, but that is applicable to all supply chains. And those are, I mean, we've seen it in the past 10 years, 15, 20 years, that the rise of the importance of supply chain specific knowledge is becoming that differentiator for a lot of these companies. You can't just grow your company without growing your supply chain.
And I also think that the scope of supply chain is in the future not only what we used to understand about supply chain. I think supply chain also should be in the lead of strategy, because supply chain understands the connectivity of the whole network, from commercial through finance to operations. And so from a strategy perspective, supply chain has a very transparent overview of what the different functions do, what the different functions need, and also should own the strategic element.
Absolutely. Even as recently as 10 years ago, and I use that because that's how long I've been with Miebach and in the supply chain industry, a lot of supply chains were still seen as an expense of doing business. And I think more and more companies have come to understand that it really can be a differentiator for their business and a revenue driver if they get it right.
Yeah, I fully agree with you.
So, looking towards our next planning horizon for those strategies, let's say the year 2030, which is not that far off, what do you believe will become the non negotiable capabilities in these resilient supply chains?
If we understand the importance of risk resilience, then we'll see deglobalized supply networks. We'll have to see deglobalized supply networks. We'll have to see dual sourcing. We'll have to
Okay.
see appropriate price levels. We'll have to see a more open and transparent conversation, exchange between pharma industry and authorities, and more flexibility there when it comes to how we manage shortages, how we are able to bring products from one market to another market, which is more relevant for Europe than for the US, but it's very relevant in Europe where you have country-specific products. I would like to believe that in the course of the next few years, we'll get a more transparent, more open, and more honest conversation about capabilities and limitations, and a joint approach how to be able to solve those.
Wonderful. So, if there were a single mindset shift that you hoped the audience walks away with after the panel that you just gave at LogiPharma, or for our listeners today, what would that be? What would that mindset shift be that you hope they walk away with?
Globalization in the pharmaceutical industry has reached its end, and we need to start thinking how to deglobalize, how to regionalize, to be more independent and risk resilient when it comes to patient supply, because that is our main purpose. That is why we are here. It's not for optimizing capex or overall equipment efficiency or these kind of things. We are here to produce product and to supply products to patients. And that is what we have to continue to do. And we have to find new ways of doing it.
That's a beautiful way of putting it, to go back to what it is that we're doing in the first place and why. When it comes to the pharmaceutical industry, of course, there is profit to be made, but it is about making medicine for people who need it. That's the bottom line.
Exactly.
What stood out from this conversation is that resilience is no longer just an operational concern. It's becoming a strategic differentiator. The organizations that will lead in the next decade are the ones designing supply chains that can anticipate disruption, adapt quickly, and continue protecting patient access, no matter how uncertain the environment becomes. Stefan, thank you so much for joining us and sharing the insights coming out of LogiPharma 2026. And as always, thank you for listening to Speaking of Supply Chain.